The Big Ten had one job when putting together the new schedule format, which begins in 2024, and it's clear they didn't understand the assignment.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes for the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Monday, June 12th in the year 2023, and this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. During today's episode, we will go over the new schedule format, which has two parts, and also unveil the opponents, Big Ten opponents, the Buckeyes will play in 2024 and 2025. We'll also go over one big question I have about the 2024 Buckeye football season. But first, this time of year is something that I am looking to try to put together some summer topics. I have a few. I actually recently discussed some with somebody earlier today that I want to go over with us during the upcoming weeks. And then there's this time of year in 2023 where the Big Ten decided now is a perfect time to unveil our new schedule model, which begins in 2024. And this portion of it goes into 2025 as well. And so there's two parts to it. We'll go over the second part, another part in the next segment. But one of the parts that stuck out to me was the protected opponents, or as I call them, protected rivalries. Opponents that you'll play annually, even after the 2025 season. Year in, year out, year in, year out, you're going to play these opponents every single year. Also, you're also going to have more Big Ten expansion. So I do think that they might add some annual opponents, some protected rivalries to teams in the future. When I first looked at Ohio State's protected rivalry and looked at the rest of the conference, one, I was reminded that USC and UCLA will be joining the Big Ten starting in 2024. Huge for the conference. Going out to Southern California, playing in the LA Coliseum, playing in the Rose Bowl Stadium. That's huge for the people in the conference, not just for the ability to make more money, but also it allows you to have a better footprint and be able to recruit in other areas that maybe you struggled in, or maybe Ohio State wants to get more kids from Southern California. They could do a better job of this right now going forward, starting in 2024. But also the protected rivalry part. Ohio State has one protected rivalry. That's Michigan. Look at the other schools in the Big Ten. Illinois has two. Michigan has two. Michigan State and Ohio State. Northwestern has one, only Illinois, the in-state opponent, in-state rival there. Rutgers has Maryland, really close geographically. IU and Purdue in the same state. Michigan State, Michigan. Michigan State only has one. Michigan Wolverines, makes sense. UCLA has USC. USC has UCLA, great. Penn State has zero. Now, it's in the Penn State podcast, don't get me wrong, but there's a connection there with the Ohio State Buckeyes. Well, the rest of the Big Ten as well. One, the Penn State and Nittany Lions are the only team in the conference that has no protected rivalry. That's dumb. That's stupid. Secondly, Ohio State and Penn State should play every single year. I'll say it once. I'll say it again. I'll keep saying it for the next 10 to 15 years. Ohio State and Penn State should play every single year, which is why this is a big missed opportunity by the Big Ten Football Conference. And if I am Fox, who generally has this game every year because it's generally the biggest game that's available. Now, granted, Fox may want to go Big 12 or maybe Pac-12 during that week because maybe it's just rare. Maybe there's a big game, 2 versus 3, that supersedes the importance of Ohio State, Penn State, and the competitive nature of Ohio State, Penn State in that season. So I understand if Fox says, hey, Big Noon, we're not going to Happy Valley. We're not going to Columbus. We're going down, let's just say, to Austin, Texas. Or, actually, that season, there won't be going to Texas. I believe it's when Texas joins the SEC. So maybe they're going to Stillwater, whatever it may be. But Ohio State and Penn State should play every year. It's just I thought it was an expected thing. And I do believe 2025 is the first time since Penn State joined the conference that Ohio State and Penn State will not play each other. Let that sink in for you as well. The first time since Penn State joins the conference, you have a new schedule model. You go out west to get a couple teams to come and join the Big Ten Conference, and you take away something like this. Now, you don't have a Joe Pa there at Penn State. James Franklin, good coach. Ain't no Joe Paterno. Has not won the Natty. Hasn't. I don't think he's made a playoff either. So, no, that's not James Franklin. But what you have is James Franklin, who's a really good coach, and Ryan Day, who's a really good coach. And the conference deserves this matchup. Why in the world would the conference take away such a matchup like this? Why? Well, maybe because people say Ohio State should not have to play the two best teams in the Big Ten Conference every single year. Now, granted, that's currently. I think in a couple years, Penn State, USC are going to be rivaling, or UCLA and USC and Penn State will be rivaling to be the second best team, or maybe even the third best team in the conference. Because if Ohio State's 1 and Michigan's 2, or Michigan's 1, Ohio State's 2, depending on how you look at it, Penn State's clearly number 3 right now without USC and UCLA. So then if you say USC, UCLA, Penn State, then there's a legitimate argument saying, okay, who is next in line? If Ohio State's 1 and Michigan's 2, who is number 3? There's a legitimate argument in a couple years to say, hey, maybe it's not USC. Maybe it's not UCLA. Maybe it is one of those two schools and Penn State. Maybe they're all in the running for it. That's possible. Nebraska, I do think under Matt Rule is going to come up, but I still think the hierarchy in the Big Ten Conference, Ohio State, Michigan at the top. The next school automatically is Penn State. I think Ohio State, Penn State deserve to play every single year. If Fox doesn't get that game and CBS or NBC gets it, let's say CBS gets it, 3:30, let's just say Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson are still on the call. Man, they'll be loving that matchup. And I'm sure Gary Danielson's chomping at the bit to get back in the shoe and to get back over to Happy Valley to call a game. Now you say, hey, first trip back to Columbus. It's Ohio State, Penn State. Brad Nessler, Gary Danielson, they will love that for them. Also, I would love it for the players, love it for the coaches, love it for a college football fan like myself and like you. But unfortunately, the Big Ten missed a big opportunity to have these two teams, Ohio State and Penn State, play every year. They deserve to play every single year. And I think if they look at this again in a couple of years, especially if they add more schools to the conference, they might say, wait, Ohio State, Penn State, you got to play every year because it just makes sense for the competitiveness that this rivalry and these two teams have when they're playing the football against each other on any given Saturday. Coming up next, we'll go over the rest of the new format for the Big Ten schedules and the Ohio State opponents in 2024 and 2025. This is Locked On Buckeyes. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs because right now new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's $2,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. There's no better place to bet all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. So the Big Ten unveiled a new format for the schedules. The schedules that they unveil, the opponents, and the current format goes through 2024 and 2025. The protected rivalries, that's not going to change, but the two play opponents that are part of the new schedule model, that will change in 2026 and the season in 2027 and beyond. Or maybe they decide to go to a different way to make the schedule, which will start in 2026 because the current model is a 2-year model. I'm going to read this directly from a graphic that came from the Big Ten Football Conference when they unveiled the new schedules. Quote, under the new flex Protect Plus scheduling model, schools have 2 play opponents that will be played both home and away in 2024 and 2025. The other component is the protected rivalries, which we discussed earlier in the show. So Ohio State, protected rivalry, protected opponent, there's only one. That's the Michigan Wolverines. Now, there are 2 play opponents, the teams that they'll play both home and away in 2024 and 2025, Illinois and Northwestern. Yes, the LI Buck does live on, or the Ella Buck, or however you pronounce that trophy that we don't really talk about much. I don't really think Illinois and Ohio State have played since I became the host of this podcast. If they have, it wasn't a game that I remember because it was a blowout. But Illinois is back on the schedule. Northwestern's on the schedule. So maybe you'll say, Jay, no Penn State. Is there a good opponent that's on the schedule replacing them? As at least in the 2 play opponents that's in this model? No. And can I just say really quickly, why did the Big Ten make this weird name for the new model of this schedule? Flex, Protect, Plus scheduling model? Buddy, people have been talking about pods and protected rivalries for months, and y'all got to go and get all wordy and make something that just is not easy to roll off the tongue and make it something for me to have to slowly walk through this thing. Why y'all got to do that? Why? I ain't really mad. I'm just trying to just get some stuff off my head and off my chest. Y'all don't have to do stuff like this. Flex, Protect, Plus scheduling model. Okay. I can say it. We all can say it. But man, y'all could have made a name of a model that was easier to say than Flex, Protect, Plus scheduling model. So in 2024 and 2025, the Ohio State's opponents go like this. Let me get to my screen really quickly. 2024, the away opponents are, these are home opponents. Big Ten Conference opponents, not home. Away opponents for 2024. There we go. Michigan State, Minnesota, Penn State, UCLA. Yes, there's a trip to Southern California during the first year that UCLA is a part of the Big Ten Conference. Ohio State going to UCLA, playing in the Rose Bowl Stadium. I am here for it. I'm absolutely here for it. Now, I still think it's odd that USC and UCLA are part of the conference, and it wouldn't be shocked if Washington and Oregon come to the conference, or North Carolina and Duke come to the conference, or Miami and Florida State come to the conference, or Notre Dame in a few years come. I would not be shocked by any of that. Because if you're just trying to expand, you're trying to go. I've heard and read that the Big Ten has looked at 10 other schools to try to vet them out to see if they should come to the conference. Okay, look, man, you're at 16 now. If you want to go to 20, easily. Washington, Oregon, Miami, Florida State, or North Carolina, Duke. The other 2 Pac-12 schools should come automatically. You got Phil Knight money. You got Washington. They're good in multiple sports. Then you also got Miami. You can recruit better down there. Florida State. You can recruit great down there. The North Carolina and Duke, they help you on the basketball court. Not football schools. Help you in other things that generate some type of revenue. Back to the opponents that I got away from. The home opponents for Ohio State in 2024, Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, Northwestern, Rutgers. In 2025, the home opponents for the Ohio State Buckeyes, Indiana, Maryland, Nebraska, USC. Yeah, the Trojans come to Columbus in 2025. I'm here for that. I think the last time the Buckeyes and the Trojans played in the regular season was mid-2000s. I actually believe that USC won that game last time the Trojans were in Columbus playing a game. I know they played a bowl game. I want to say 2016 maybe. Don't think it was 2017. I think it was more 2016. And the 1 year was Notre Dame, 1 year was USC. Forget who it was. Maybe it was 2018. No, that was Rose Bowl. 2016 to 2017, I believe, was the last time the Trojans and Buckeyes played a football game, but it was a bowl game. So I am actually here for USC to come over here. The away opponents in 2025, Illinois, Michigan, Northwestern, Purdue, and Wisconsin. And so I'm sitting here thinking about this schedule and thinking about one thing that we see here in regards to the schedule in 2024. The non-conference schedule is really weak. Really, really weak Southern Miss, Western Michigan in Marshall, August 31st, September 7th, September 24th, leaves a weekend, Western Michigan and Marshall for there to be a conference opponent, which could be Minnesota. I doubt they play Michigan State that early. Doubt they play Illinois that early. Could be Iowa. Just trying to spitball a little bit there. Could be USC. You want to get some good weather in Southern California, UCLA. Was it you? No, yeah, that's UCLA in 2024. Go out there to Southern California, make it great. But a schedule that I thought could be a little bit better, it's pretty weak. Michigan State on the road doesn't scare me. Minnesota on the road doesn't scare me. Illinois at home doesn't scare me at all. Iowa, don't think it'll be good in a couple of years. Michigan, okay, as expected. Northwestern at home, it's still Northwestern under Pat Fitzgerald. Not that good. Rutgers, not that good. Penn State on the road, a tough test. UCLA could be a tough test. So there's some tough tests there. But I just don't know if this is a schedule that I'd be looking at and saying, ooh, Ohio State, 2024 opponents. This is good for them. Also, I don't know, because I'm not a schedule maker. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about making schedules in different ways. Would it help the Big Ten by doing a pod system? Instead of having the two-play thing, would it make it a whole lot better if they just did 4 groups of 4? Because 4 times 4 is 16. There'll be 16 teams in the conference at that time. Would it just say, hey, if you keep this current format, Illinois, Michigan, Northwestern, part of the pod system, would it make more sense for them to add a 4th school and make a pod system? Would it make it easier for them to schedule things out in the future? Now, I don't know, but I heard so much talk about the pod system. I started to think, hey, this is the way that they're going to go. This makes a whole lot of sense. I don't know, man. Like, I don't know one or the other, but I do think if you have 4 schools you play annually or 4 schools you play every single year, it does leave a lot of the guesswork out of, okay, what do we remember? Did our computer system crash? Okay, we got this backup here, but we lost that one. Who in the world did the Buckeyes play in 2024 and 2025 for us to format a schedule in the future? Now, it's spitballing. There's backups, and realistically, you can talk to people like myself and people like, maybe even you remember the schedule, top to bottom, beginning to end of a season, like it's the back of your hand. So maybe that's the way that it's going to go. I don't know, but I still think the pod system might have been the better system to get some more consistency with the scheduling for the Buckeyes and the rest of the teams in the Big Ten Conference in the future. Ultimately, the one thing I do like about this, get the 2 best teams, no more divisions, but you get the 2 best teams in the conference to play each other, potentially play each other in the Big Ten Conference Championship game. No more divisions. If Ohio State, Michigan are the best teams in the conference in any given year, you'll get a rematch. Back-to-back weeks, Wolverines and Buckeyes. And if that's close to happening, I better hope y'all get y'all tickets in September or October, beginning of October. Because if you're waiting for the game after Thanksgiving weekend, after that game ends, for you to buy your ticket, ultimately, what are you doing? Possibly going to be out of a ticket because it's going to be so much money. You might not want to spend the money to buy that ticket. Coming up next, I have one big question to end the show in regards to the 2024 season and the schedule and the opponents. Where am I going with this? You'll find out next on Locked On Buckeyes. Thanks for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen every single day. Now is perfect time if you're a Spotify or Apple Podcast listener to leave a 5-star review or a rating. On Spotify, 5 stars. On Apple, 5 stars. And even leave a comment there to allow more people to learn and freely and easily come across Locked On Buckeyes for them to get all the Buckeye news they need in their life. Locked On Buckeyes is a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So when I look at this schedule, and I'm looking at this on the internet, I usually go to FBSschedules.com. It's FBS There aren't two S's there. FBschedules.com. There you go. And they don't normally go there and look at the schedules and look and see future opponents and things like that. And when I look at this, I try to come into it with an open mind. I try to look at schedules and look at things like this and say, okay, let's take my bias out of it. Let's take my hindrances out of it. Maybe I have a grudge with somebody in the Big Ten for what I don't. I know there's a lot of heat for people that didn't like Kevin Warren. I was not one of them. However, when the news came out, the Big Ten, Kevin Warren gave the Big Ten championship game away to a network that it wasn't allowed to do. Well, started to go on the downside of Kevin Warren and say, man, that was a bad decision. But normally I'm not that guy. So I look at schedules, I look at things like this and try to get a big summary for Ohio State. It comes kind of easy, but then again, it doesn't. But when I look at the schedule, Southern Miss, Western Michigan, Marshall, at Michigan State, at Minnesota, Illinois, Iowa, Michigan, Northwestern, Rutgers, at Penn State, at UCLA. This question comes to my head. Do the opponents in 2024 prepare the Ohio State Buckeyes for the college football playoff? That's it. Because when I look at it, you're going to say, Jay, okay, not Illinois is weak, Minnesota's weak, Michigan State weak, Marshall weak, Western Michigan weak, Southern Miss weak, Iowa weak, Michigan's good, Northwestern's weak, Rutgers is weak, Penn State's good, UCLA's probably going to be good. So realistically, you got 3 tough games. None of them being in a non-conference opponent. Now the Buckeyes could have helped themselves. What was it, the Washington game that they got rid of in 2024, which I say, why? That was not smart at all. Looking to replace a non-conference opponent in 2025 because the Buckeyes and the Huskies, I don't remember the exact reason why that was the case and why that went away. But ultimately, when I look at it, when I think about it, they could have used that Washington game in 2024. Because I'm not a big fan of the week non-conference, not at all. I believe you need to play one Power 5 opponent every year in the non-conference, and I'm not saying it needs to be a Texas or a Washington or an Oregon or a Florida State or LSU. I'm not Oklahoma State. I ain't saying that. I ain't saying it has to be the top of the conference any given year. I'm not saying or towards the top of the conference. I am not saying that. But you can't come in here and say, oh, Southern Miss, doesn't really prepare me well. Western Michigan, doesn't prepare me well. Marshall, No, I'm not here for it. And so I wonder in 2024, could there be a new coach in Ohio State? It could be. I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen this year. But this is not the kind of schedule you want when you're trying to prepare for the end of the season. 2024. I believe it's the first year of an expanded playoff. Now, maybe Ohio State is trying to say, let's just get in there and then get to see what happens at that point in time. Maybe that's what they're going for. But no, man, you're in the Big Ten. You have to play one big-time non-conference opponent. Why? Because the Big Ten schedule doesn't prepare you for no CFP. These schools are weak. These schools are soft. They are not good. I wish the Buckeyes schedule was tougher in 2024 because it would better prepare them for the college football playoff. People get mad at the SEC and LSU won a natty and Alabama won a natty and Georgia won back-to-back and people get mad, upset in their feelings. Here's one thing that helps those schools in the South. The SEC is the best football conference in college football. And so a team like Alabama, a team like a Georgia, a team like a LSU, I'm going with the 3 recent teams, not just from the SEC that have won a national championship, that have legitimately won national championships. Georgia 2022 and 2021, Alabama in 2020, LSU in 2019. There's a reason why they're getting tested any given Saturday, and it helps them and it properly prepares them for the CFP at the end of the season. Big Ten does not, which is why this schedule does not prepare them properly for the CFP. I would love to have one of these schools, maybe Iowa, play a whole lot better that year, But also, man, I wish they could add, which they can, just take some money, a lot of money, which they got. I wish they added and had another Power 5 or one Power 5 opponent in the non-conference. That drastically helps you for the gauntlet, which will be winning the CFP at the end of the season. Out of here on a Monday. You can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. You can send all of your emails to jstevens317 at gmail.com. This has been Locked on Buckeyes here on a Monday. I'm your host, Jay Stevens. Make sure you come back for the rest of the week. I promised you in the Everydayers, remember me discussing the strength and conditioning program at Ohio State. It's coming up later in the week. You don't want to miss it. For Locked on Buckeyes here on a Monday, I'm your host, Jay Stevens. I'll see you next time.